Now, our poll question today, what do you think of James Woods' $10 million defamation lawsuit against a Twitter troll? Do you hope he wins so Twitter trolls will learn their lessons once and for all? Do you say, hey, it's free speech, let the guy say what he wants to say? Do you think since he's rich, he should just move on and leave the poor Twitter troll who probably just wanted some attention alone? Or do you think this is junior high stuff and we shouldn't even be talking about it? Vote in that poll right now, U2America.com, by using the U2 America app. Download it if you don't have it already. And I am wondering, does James Woods' $10 million lawsuit have a snowball's chance? And if it does, could I go after some of my Twitter trolls with a big old lawsuit? Here to give me a little legal advice is attorney and legal analyst Austin Dove. Austin, I couldn't really be more excited about a topic than this topic. I am so excited, and I want you to tell me, does this lawsuit have a chance? Is James Woods going to get any money from this troll?
I think there's not much of a chance at all. I think you said a snowball. That might even be generous. The issue that the challenge he has is that he's a public figure, and just like you are. And when you're a public figure, when you open yourself up to the kind of publicity, you got to take the good with the bad.
But let me ask you this though, because on that note, and I have been given that line before when people have done mean things that you can't do anything because you're a public figure. But if it affects his work, you know, seeing that he's a coke addict, I know how Hollywood works. I'm close to a lot of folks here in the area that are in Hollywood involved in that. And if it does get back to those who hire for movies in Hollywood, that the guy's got a coke habit, it does matter. I mean, you could lose work over that. And if James could demonstrate that he actually lost a movie role over what this troll said, then would it be more effective?
Well, the first hurdle to get past is whether there's any truth to the statement, because defamation, as you know, a defamatory statement has to be false.
Right.
So I don't know. I mean, the whole idea of being a coke addict, being a drug addict, it could have been something from his remote past, but the label of addict may still apply. But with respect to what James Woods did, it's exactly what I would do. You've got to still go after people. I mean, people make the same kind of remarks about Tom Cruise, whether or not he's gay, Will Smith. We see these in all sorts of circles.
Right.
You go after them aggressively, and sometimes that's the maneuver and the move you have to make in order to shut this down.
Yeah, and apparently the Twitter account has been closed. Let me ask you this. Would someone like James Woods have a better chance with a lawsuit if they were a private person instead of a celebrity?
Absolutely. A private person, see, as a public figure, he's got to show the actual malice and there was knowledge of the falsity, kind of the recklessness involved that the public figure needs to show. But a private person is a much lower standard. It simply needs to show that the statement was materially false, intentionally made. And that's a whole different ball game. So, you know, the celebrities with all the money, all the largesse that comes with that, there's an and the same thing is true with politicians. You know, you insert yourself into the public domain, people are going to make satires about you. There's going to be jokes. There's going to be things on Saturday Night Live. You have to be able to open yourself up to say, these are fair game now that I'm in that realm. But to your point, Dr. Gina, yes, if he's a private person, it's a lot easier to go after people. And that might apply much more to a lot of people in your audience, people who are saying, look, people said negative things about me. I find that to be the case, that it's a much more common lawsuit sort of in England, in Europe. Defamation, libel, slander, we do that. We see that all the time. We don't see it as much here, but it's definitely an action that's still viable under certain circumstances.
It's interesting because you wonder if the threat of a lawsuit and the popularity of this being a trending issue on Twitter might have a chilling effect on some of the trolls, even if they don't completely understand the complexities of public person versus private person. And how is that kind of thing decided? I mean, how do you decide someone is a public person or a private person? Because everyone has a public life to some degree. So what constitutes public person?
Well, that's a very good question. It's kind of a step up. You can kind of take a step up as sort of a mini ladder. Think of a step ladder. There's something called a limited public figure. Let's say, for some example, someone says, I'm going to become an activist. I want people to know that I'm against something to do with, let's say, Cecil the Lion. I want everybody to follow me about that subject. For those circumstances, you can kind of insert yourself into the public figure status, and then you have a different standard, a higher standard if you say someone went after you and made a defamatory statement, you've got to prove that same standard that James Wood would have to prove. So there is kind of a way you can start to push back some of the lawsuits. If you're like to your point about where are people going with this, what happens to the regular individual? The regular individual is still going to have a higher standard, and an easier case to make. But when you put yourself in the public domain at a higher level, then you're going to have that higher standard of proof.
Yeah, because I would think that some could argue, frankly, that if you're on Twitter, you're a public person. I mean, what is Twitter if it's not public? Especially if your timeline is so-called public. If you're on Facebook, does that make you a public person? If you've ever appeared on a show like this, does that make you a public person? I mean, I just don't know how we define public anymore with social media. These things are getting so complex and difficult to define. I guess it comes down to this: what can we get in trouble for saying on social media?
You got to be careful about saying things that you know are false. I think that's still going to be you're sort of guided by the same principles that you knew exist. Don't lie about people. Don't say things just to be inflammatory or to spark intrigue or curiosity. Or more important, because remember, the second part of defamation is it also has to be something that tends to lower the person's reputation. So in this case, you say something that's false that would tend to lower the person's reputation, tend to make people look at them askance or with less credibility. To your point about maybe the movie studios would be reluctant to hire James Woods now based upon this. Maybe he loses money. But those things that can hurt your reputation, make you look worse, that are false, you got to be careful about saying those things. I think you make a very valid point about the fact that it could have a chilling effect in some ways. People need to still be sort of guided by some principles of fair judgment when they say, I'm going to put things out there. And then there's going to be people that are going to go after you. James Wood certainly has the means to go after this individual. And as you said, his account's already been shut down. If the lawsuit goes through, there's a judgment against him. He may not pay it, but it's still out there. And it can affect him in garnishing wages and other such things. So it's a pretty significant thing to do. And it's available, the defamation action, to individuals who have been wronged this way.
Yeah, it almost seems like a public service that James Wood uses money to go after this troll, because almost anyone on Twitter has experienced just the nastiness of trolls and may not be able to afford to do what James Woods can obviously afford to do. So it's a lot of food for thought, and it'll be interesting to watch as this story develops. Thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate it.
Pleasure to be on. Thank you, Dr. Gina.